As we continue to move through the Father Wound series, I've talked about Saturn and the role it plays in revealing wounds, challenges, and authority dynamics that shape us. But once we actually identify the wound, the next question naturally becomes, how do we heal it? This is where Chiron enters the story. In astrology, Chiron is called the wounded healer, as well as the rainbow bridge. And that's because Chiron sits between the orbit of Saturn and Uranus. And this is where we break free from the structures or inherited stories and begin to write our own individual stories. Uranus is about the process of individuation. And when we look at the mythology behind Chiron, we discover a powerful story that can teach us a great deal about healing the father wound, and perhaps even the deeper human wounds we all carry. So in Greek mythology, Chiron was the product of an affair between Cronus, the Greek equivalent of Saturn, and the sea nymph Philyra, I think is how you say it. So right from the beginning, Chiron and Saturn are connected. And also note the biological father not really standing in as a true father role. So Chiron's story was not an easy one. And in many versions of the story, of the myth, Chiron was rejected by his mother shortly after his birth because she was unable to accept his unusual appearance because he was half man and half centaur. So she abandoned him. So from the very beginning, Chiron experienced rejection and loss and the pain of not feeling fully accepted for who he was. Luckily, he was taken in and raised by Zeus, who taught him all the things. And rather than becoming consumed by bitterness and anger or hurt, Chiron became a student of life and grew into one of the greatest healers, teachers, and mentors of all Greek mythology. Many of the heroes and leaders sought his wisdom and learned under his guidance. So the abandoned child became the teacher, the wounded one became the healer, and the rejected one became the guide. He also was said to have gotten married and had children of his own and become a good father. And maybe that's why Chiron's story continues to resonate so deeply today, because many of us, if not all of us, know what it feels like to carry wounds like this that shaped us, to feel unseen or misunderstood, rejected, abandoned, or not fully supported in becoming who we were meant to be. But there's another part of Chiron's story that's equally important. On top of the rejection, he was accidentally shot with a poisoned arrow that he couldn't heal from. So he had to learn to live with it for eternity because he was immortal. Interesting too to note that the injury was not inflicted on purpose. So despite becoming a master healer, Chiron carried a wound that he could never completely heal. And I think this is where the myth becomes important for each of us. Because healing is not about becoming wound-free. It doesn't mean the pain we carry was inflicted intentionally either. Maybe it was a story in a past life we carry forward individually or as part of a collective wound. Or maybe something in this life or that hurt us and has intensified the story in this life. Like perhaps early childhood experiences or the relationship between our parents or with our parents. So either way, I think Chiron in our astrology chart is a representation of a story or pain that we carry and are here to learn to understand more deeply so we can become the master of our own destiny and lives. It's not about staying stuck in that false belief that you're broken or you need fixing. It's about changing our relationship with our wounds. It's about transforming our pain into wisdom. Wisdom that can serve others, like Chiron did. Now, even though I'm speaking about Chiron in relationship to the father wound because of his connection to Saturn through the myth, Chiron's stories also contains themes of the mother wound. Chiron was not only the son of Saturn, he was also abandoned by his mother. So this reminds us that our healing journey is rarely about just one parent or person. You can go back and listen to the last video I did to get more on that. So it's often about the collection of experiences that shaped us, the paternal imprint and the maternal imprint, and the messages we received through both about love, safety, worthiness, belonging, or our place in the world. And in your astrology, these themes may show up in many places, but more likely stronger through Saturn, the 10th house, placements there, Capricorn, or strong Sun-Saturn connections. Other times they can emerge through Cancer, the moon, the 4th house, or Saturn placed in the 4th or in Cancer. And often both parental archetypes contributed important chapters to your story. In my work, I often say Saturn reveals the wound, Chiron shows us how to heal it, and the sun reveals who we become because of it. The sun video is coming next. So this is why I encourage people not to become too hung up or attached to the labels of father wound or mother wound, because there is no one person, remember, that reveals our hurt or healing journey. And this isn't about blame either. And again, I'll say, it doesn't mean fixing and never feeling the pain or being triggered in our lives by something that touches that place within us. It's about embracing the human experience as a process and journey of seeking wisdom learned through time and experience, and then allowing it to be our guidance for discovering our true gifts and how we might be able to offer them in service to others to empower them on their journey. Before I go any further, I want to share something personal. So one of the reasons why Chiron holds such a special place in my own healing journey is because much of this work initiated during my Chiron return. So the Chiron return is a major astrological rite of passage transit that everyone experiences around the age of 50. It's the moment when transiting Chiron returns to the exact place it occupied at your birth. And for many people, it becomes a powerful time and period of self-reflection, healing, integration, and self-discovery. And not always an easy time. In fact, it can feel like it's bringing all the old wounds back up to the surface that you thought you'd handled or healed or learned to manage. Not for like another round of like punishment or pain, but it invites us into that deeper next level soul healing. And for me, my Chiron return coincided with one of the most significant moments of my life, which was losing my father. And in many ways, that experience became a catalyst for the deeper father wound work I've been doing for myself and sharing throughout this series. Looking back now, I can see that it wasn't simply about grief. It was about understanding my story, understanding the role that both my father, stepfather, mother, everyone in my life played in shaping me. Understanding the beliefs I carried about myself and the fears I inherited and the patterns I unconsciously accepted, and ultimately discovering who I was beyond those things. The work was not always comfortable, but it has been liberating. It's helped me release a lot of fears that have followed me for years. It helped me reclaim parts of myself I didn't even realize I'd tucked away. And perhaps more importantly, it gave me the courage to speak more openly about my story and my journey and the work I now share with others. This is just one of the gifts of Chiron. Not that the wound disappears, that's not how it works or how the myth goes, but the wound becomes a doorway into greater wisdom, greater compassion, greater acceptance, and greater authenticity, and greater freedom to be yourself. So if you're approaching your Chiron turn, currently moving through one, or looking back at one, you can consider this video as an invitation for your own reflection. Maybe it will take you a little bit deeper into your own story. Chiron's sign can offer a great beginning insight, but Chiron has a unique elliptical orbit that causes it to spend dramatically different lengths of time in different signs. So the house placement can reveal really where the healing journey may unfold most personally in your life. But what really interests me most is the story Chiron is telling in relationship to Saturn, the sun, and your unique life experience. Beyond the house placement, I also encourage people to examine the relationship between Chiron, Saturn, and the sun in your natal chart. Look to what house Chiron's in. Does Chiron aspect Saturn? Does Chiron aspect the sun? Does Saturn aspect the sun? These are connections that can reveal deeper layers of your story. A strong Saturn-Chiron connection can reveal how authority wounds became deeply internalized, especially if Saturn's retrograde. And Chiron-Sun connections can reveal how wounds impacted confidence or self-expression, your feeling safe to be visible, or your purpose. And Saturn-Sun connection can point to significant father themes around authority, struggles, self-worth issues or challenges, or lessons around personal empowerment. And depending on the chart, Chiron may reveal wounds connected to the father, the mother, both parents, caregivers, or ancestral patterns and even soul level experiences that seem to extend beyond a single relationship or lifetime. And as we move into a new collective chapter, these themes may become even more relevant. Because on June 19th, Chiron enters Taurus, and this begins a preview of a much longer cycle that will unfold over the coming years. Taurus brings our attention to self-worth, value, security, our resources, and our relationship with being enough. And for many people, these themes connect directly to the father wound. Because underneath so many father wound stories or father stories are the same questions being asked, like, am I enough? Am I worthy? Do I deserve love, success, or to take up space? Do I matter? And as Chiron begins this journey through Taurus, these questions are going to be impossible to ignore. And where Chiron in Taurus will be traveling in your chart over these years can help you discover more about that story for you. These are powerful places to begin your exploration because Chiron reminds us that our wound is not a life sentence. It's an invitation, an initiation. I personally have Chiron in the 10th house, and so I know it is part of my own healing work to allow myself to be seen vulnerably, walking my own healing path to hopefully empower others to do the same. It took me a long time to get here, and it is still not easy. I will say this though, for each of you who resonates with something I share and offers a comment or a heart or forwards it to someone you think can benefit, it really feels like I'm doing my good work. So thank you. Thank you for being here, for listening to me, and for witnessing my journey. And I'd love to hear from you too. Like, does this resonate, the wounded healer archetype or the father wound? Have you experienced your Chiron return yet? And are you currently navigating a healing journey of your own? Where is Chiron in your chart? What house is it in? I'd love to hear some of your experiences in the comments. And if you'd really love to do this with one-on-one support, I'd love to work with you. I invite you to check out my Wound to Wisdom astrology session at nurturingastrology.com. I've developed a 6-point kind of approach, discovery process that we can dive into to explore your Saturn story, Chiron, and the Sun, and what those are all telling you about your story and your path of becoming and healing and personal empowerment. So I'd love to support you on your journey of becoming, because your wound is not the end of your story. It may be the very thing that leads you home to yourself. And sometimes that wound that shaped you can become the wisdom that helps guide someone else. That's my hope with my work anyway. So thanks for being here. Take care, friends, and keep nurturing your astrology. I also want to do just a quick follow-up to my Chiron and the Father Wound video for parents. So naturally looking at Chiron in our child's chart can be a little bit unsettling. I remember looking at my son's chart when he was a baby and thinking to myself, could I do something as a parent to nurture his Chiron, to either help him on the process of healing or to ensure I didn't inflict more of that wound on him or make his journey of personal growth and evolution and healing more difficult than it needed to be. There's two things that I learned and practiced. The one is I remembered that he did come here with his own soul imprint and journey, and that if you believe that Chiron can come from past life, that may or may not have had anything to do with me or his family or his parents. but on some level, it certainly did if he's choosing to incarnate now with us, right? So this means that conscious parenting, my foundation for conscious parenting with astrology, is to know yourself, to do your own healing work first, because that naturally is then going to provide a healthier environment for our children. So understanding your child's Chiron can help you understand maybe the essence of their wound, their story, and give you a little bit of insight into how you might be able to actually support their healing journey. And also remember, our children are a reflection and come into our lives to also help us on ours. So it's very possible there'll be connections between our Chirons and their existence actually be playing a deep and profound role in your own unique healing journey through becoming a parent and through embarking on that journey of self-discovery can really make a huge difference. But I do think it's important not to put a lot of pressure on yourself about this placement, and also to not project your fears around what you sense or feel about this placement onto your child. That is the biggest note I would say and encourage, and why it's so important to make ourselves and our own growth journey a priority. So you can look to the house that your child's Chiron is in and maybe get an idea of where their story may fall. Like, for example, in the 11th house, perhaps the groups or friendships or environments, that they become a part of, there may be some stories around having to heal friendships or learning about themselves and who they are in a group setting or a group dynamic as part of their journey. And that could be part of your story as well. I'm having kind of an epiphany in the moment that I'm an Aquarius, right? And my son's Chiron is in the 11th. There could be this personal connection between my unfolding and personal becoming and acceptance of who I uniquely am and how I fit in or don't, and the acceptance of that as being an example to help him heal his Chiron wound in embracing who he is individually in a group dynamic. And maybe that comes through different stories, but the core theme is the same and is connected. Does that make sense? So I just wanted to give my parents a little piece of this puzzle as well, because I know that it can be really scary sometimes for people to look at certain placements in their child's chart and wonder if that means something about them, or if it means that they are going to hurt their child or that they are going to play some role in their wounding, when really the point of you coming together is you play a role in their healing. And by healing yourself, doing your healing work, you are actually helping them do the same for themselves. Maybe that's why you decided, maybe soul contract wise, to come into this life together as parent and child. So keep that in mind. I hope that helps to maybe dispel a little bit of the fear or worry or concern that might come up when you look at your child's Chiron placement. Okay, take care, friends. Let me know if you have any questions about this in the comments. Just wanted to give this little additional piece for my parents. Take care, keep nurturing your astrology, and I'll be back again soon.